Solution video for United States Presidents version 2. Okay, so the first step was open the file. That was obviously no points possible. And then change the font of the body text to Franklin Gothic Book 11 points and change the spacing after to 8 points. So I'm starting from the solution file as if this were your exam file. So what I do is I just hover over the normal style and check whether it's been changed to Franklin Gothic Book, and the spacing afterwards, what was it again? 8 points. So I hover over it. Spacing after 8 points. I can't see the size, so I have to open the dialog box. 11 points. So if the change has not been made in a normal style, there are no marks given. With the insertion point located at the end of the paragraph beginning the office of United States President, insert a blank page. And you create that page like in the downloaded example. So the title vertically and horizontally centered, 26 points, double top and bottom border of half a point, and the border starts at 2 centimeters and end at 14 centimeters. So to be able to vertically center the title, you need to create a section. So I check whether you have a section break. There you can see it. I can also check it by clicking above the break and then looking at section 1, clicking below it, and then see that we have section 2. So it's vertically centered. I can see that. It's horizontally centered. Now I have to check the borders. I can see they're double borders, but just to show you, this is where you can find a double border. So it's not immediately visible here. You have to scroll down. And to make the border start at 2 centimeters and end at 14, you have to set the left indent to 2 centimeters and the right indent to 2 centimeters. So the distance between the margin and the right indent. So how are the marks allocated? So 6 in total, 4 if no section or multiple pages in the first section. Also -4 if not vertically centered or if all your sections are vertically centered. -3 if no top and bottom border. -2 if left and right indents not set or incorrectly set. And also -1 if no paragraph or line break after of. So there were quite a few students that had something like Office of United States and then President, the new line. That was not like in the downloaded example. The next step is make first level titles of the paragraphs that begin blah blah, and change the formatting to Franklin Gothic Book 16 points, a specific color, spacing before and after 8 points. And for the second level titles, Franklin Gothic Book 11, a specific color. And that was it in terms of formatting. So you needed to change the formatting of heading 1 and heading 2 and apply it to the specific paragraphs, or the other way around. You could also first apply and then change the headings. So what I do in your document is I first look at the navigation pane, which you know you can check in the View tab. So here I see that all titles have been nicely created and the headings have been applied. And then I hover over heading 1. I first go to heading 1 and I see the color is good. I don't need to really check that because I can see that it's the right color, and the same for heading 2. I hover over heading 1. I see it's 16 points. I see the spacing before is 12. Heading 2, I see that the color has been changed. So that's 4 marks then for that step. So the first and second 11 together were 4 marks. And then apply the numbers to the first level titles only. So the number format was 1 space hyphen, 2 space hyphen, etc. The text positioned at 0.8 centimeters. Now this was a little bit tricky. So what I check in your document is, so I put my insertion point in your first title and I check if you have a multi-level list created. Yeah. So now here I can see multi-level list has been created with, for the first level, 1 space hyphen and the text set at 0.8. Now the tricky thing is that many students forgot to change the second level because the instructions said to only have numbers for the first level, but you learned to create numbers like this, to choose a library with styles associated, and then change that style. Now, if you only change heading 1 to 1 space hyphen position 0.8, that your heading 2 has this number. And even if you just take it out, you still have an indented heading 2. So what you needed to do is also set the text indent for heading 2 to 0. And that would have been a correct multi-level list. I'm going to cancel now and do Control Z so that I can roll back. I'm going to do Control Z to the beginning, so that I can go back to what it's supposed to look like. So no multi-level list used is no marks given. So if you have had a multi-level list and you succeeded in getting the first level right, then you got 3 marks, which was half of the marks. And if you did not have the level 2 set, you left 3 marks. And then if you had it correctly, 3 marks were allocated to the number format and 3 to the position of the number and the text. Next, first create a new blank page above the first heading 1. No marks given, so you needed a page break. And then in the blank paragraph at the top of the newly created page, you needed to type the title for the table of contents. And like you learned in class and in the course material, you need this to be the same formatting as heading 1, but if you apply heading 1, you have a number and it appears in the table of contents. So what I check here is to make sure that I update the table to see if it appears in the table of contents. If not, that means you probably used the correct strategy, meaning you applied heading 1, you created a new style for it, and you made sure that that new style was not added to the table of contents. So that was 4 marks for that part. The next part was insert a custom table of content with the format classic. So I know what these different formats look like. So if it's not the classic format, then there were no marks given. If the second level titles are in the table of contents after updating the table of contents, then that also means no marks given for this part, for this step. Next is apply the formatting. So the font Franklin Gothic Book. The text at 0.8, which you need to set with a hanging indent. The page number at 13 centimeters. That's changing the position of the tab and making sure that the tab, the page number tab, has leader number 2. So what I do is I first just again apply top 1. Then I look and see, okay, this looks just about like a 0.8. Anyway, the most important thing here is that there is no more tab and that there is a hanging indent. And then I see that the right indent is at the right position for the page number, and I know that this is leader number 2. I'm just going to open the dialog box for the top 1 style to check the position of the hanging indent, which is nicely 0.8. So this is what I check. The lion share of the marks is on this hanging indent, so that you know that you need to replace that tab and need to be able to overcome the tab bug in the top style. If the changes were not made in the top 1 style, then there were no marks given. Next was to create a header, like in the downloaded example. So no footer on the title page and the top page. You needed to insert the page number and the total number of pages. and the size should be 9 points. So the header, let's take a look at the header. Now, the solution file did not have the total number of pages, so I did not subtract any marks for that, so I just needed to have the page number here. So what I do is I quickly select the text and make sure that this is darker gray to make sure that this is a field and you did not just type the page number. What I also do is reapply the header to make sure that the font size, at least the font size, was added in the style of the header. So if the font size shifts, then I know that you just selected the text and changed the font size. And actually, ideally, also the centering should have been in the header, but you didn't need to center it. What you could also have done was the alignment to left, and then just tabbed to the center tab. Oh, I was not at the beginning of the text, and just tab to the center. And then applying the header would not have changed anything. So I check that page number, I check the font size in the style, and then I check that you do not have a header on the table of contents page in the title page. Now, if your table of contents page, like in this solution document, is a different section, what you needed to do was make sure that link to previous was turned off. If this was a page break and not a section break, then you needed to make sure that you had this ticked, different first page, so that the first page of this section, which is then the table of contents page, would not have a header. That was how many? 6 marks for the header. So you can see the details of how the marks are allocated in the key document, which is also on Canvas. Next, select all of the paragraphs about the presidents and format as a bullet list with the text positioned at 0.6 using direct formatting. So you select all of this text until the bottom, and you apply bullets, and then using direct formatting, you need to set the hanging indent to 0.6 centimeters. So that was 4 marks, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Then start a new line after every president's name. So a line break, shift enter after every president's name, 4 marks. And the next step was to format the name of Abraham Lincoln to a specific color, and then make that a style and apply that to all the presidents' names. Now, what you needed to do here was create a character style or a linked paragraph character style, because if you just left this setting as it is by default, you would have had a paragraph style, and a paragraph style can only be applied to paragraphs. So, and as this is the entire paragraph, you could not have applied it to these characters alone. So that was 5 marks, if I am not mistaken. Yes. So if you didn't have a character or linked style, there would have been no marks given. If you did not do the line breaks in step 13, then you did get away with a paragraph style, but you would not have gotten your marks for this. You would have still lost 4 marks for this, because otherwise it wouldn't have been fair to those students who were able to insert a line break and that know that if you want to create a style for part of a paragraph, you need a character or link style. So you would only have gotten 1 mark for that paragraph style. And then we're heading towards the end. So the next step was to create an APA style bibliography for 2 sources. And so you need to add these 2 sources. Voila, which you can find in the reference tab. And then you have the sources here. You had to create 2 new sources, a journal article and a book, and put everything in the correct fields. and then just add the bibliography. So we did not explicitly discuss this in class, but it was in your course material. That's 5 marks for the bibliography. So if you did that and if you did your numbering correctly, then you would have automatically gotten the correct number here in the bibliography. And after updating your table of contents, which you didn't need to do, but which I did in your exams, then the bibliography should also have been added to that table of contents. 5 marks for that. And then the final step was to replace, well, I'm just going to read it exactly the way it was phrased. So change all email addresses at the end of the document so that they are separated by a semicolon followed by a space. So that was a replace question. So you had to replace, you had to first select all of the email addresses and then replace them with, so all the paragraph marks, replace them with semicolon and space. How can I check whether you did it manually or not? One, I made sure that there were so many email addresses that it would have taken you too much time to replace them one by one, but I did have one student who had the patience to actually replace all of the paragraph breaks by semicolons one by one. But I can tell that it was done manually, because if you do it manually, then every email address becomes a link. So that gave her or him away, and that meant no marks given. And that was 4 marks, if I'm not mistaken, for this final step. And that finishes our solution video.